Okay, so this is all about the beginning techniques to learning how to put textures on your metal. So what we're gonna be going over is proper hammer use, what hammers do what, how to add a hammered texture to a surface, how to add a stamping texture to a surface, and then how to use wire to basically draw on metal, okay? So here's a few examples of finished projects that have various textures on them, and then you can see that there's some line work on there that has been used via wire, okay? Here's another one that's got some different textures on it, different patinas, and this is all done by hammering, okay? So the first thing I want everybody to understand is that there's hammers over here, and these are strictly metal smithing specialty hammers, and then these are hammers that are kind of for everyday use. You'll see these in Home Depot, claw hammer, and your typical ball peen hammer. And I'll get into what these do. If you want to add a texture to your metal that is just using a hammer, this is like a variety of different textures you can get. And the way that you figure this out, you get a piece of scrap metal and you kind of just explore different hammers. But the head of the hammer, for example, this is a ball peen hammer. This is going to give you that pummeled look. A straight peen hammer is going to give you the one that has like the line work. And depending on how you orient your hammer, you can create different types of patterns. Okay? So I'll just show you how to properly do that, and then we'll move on to texturing. So when you have a piece of metal, you always want to be on a steel surface. So I have different blocks that are made out of steel and different little railroad rail pieces. So make sure you have one of those. Place a mat underneath it so it's not as loud. And the first thing you do is I want to add textures that are going to appear as hammer marks. So I'm going to pull up a hammer like this, and I'm going to make sure I'm holding my hammer like a fist. So I don't want to hold a hammer like this or like this. It will cause tendonitis. And it's really the head of the hammer. We're hitting copper and non-ferrous metals such as brass. You don't have to hit really hard. It's going to make a mark. So you just start out, pay attention to where your hands are, and very simple. I could change the orientation. And it's really up to you to explore and figure that stuff out. Here is a rounded hammer. This is a ball peen hammer. This is going to create a ball peen. Okay? So these are hammers that you can hammer directly on copper. You do not want to put these hammers on steel. So moving on to stamping. There's different stamps in here. There's different stamps in here. And then there's letter stamps and number stamps over here. The way you can figure out what a stamp does is you can look at the side. Some of these have this kind of mark, and you can look at the bottom. The best thing to do is just explore. Take a piece of scrap metal out of the scrap bin and just start practicing, because you can you can use different stamps to create different designs. Most importantly, this is steel. This is made out of steel, so you never want to use a metal smithing hammer on a stamp. You want to use one of these everyday hammers, like a claw hammer. So I'm going to pick up a claw hammer. I'm going to set my stamp down. I only got one chance, okay? And I'm going to hit it. And it's going to make a mark, okay? These all do different things. I'm not going to take a bunch of time and show you all of them because I think that's more exciting for you. If you wanted to combine a stamp and a hammer texture, you would always want to lay down the foundation of a hammer mark first. And then you can put a stamp right over. You can't do the opposite, and I'll show you why. So this is a stamp. I'm going to stamp right on top of my pummeled surface that I just put there, and you can see that there's a mark there. If I want to go over it and if I want to go over that and I go, oh, I want a hammer mark. If I start hammering over that, I'm going to hammer my stamp out. So you always hammer texture, stamp over, okay? Different variety. Finally, I wanted to show you how to actually make marks that are more like line work on texture. And I've already bent these two pieces of steel wire with different pliers, okay? And this wire can be found right in this bin right over here. There's thin wire and thick wire. Now, when you have it shaped like this, you just want to lay it down, and then tape it with your good old-fashioned, with masking tape. You're going to tape it down with masking tape. Okay. I'm going to tape it completely, just completely cover it up. And because this is steel wire, I have to use one of these hammers over here. Okay? So I'm going to go over the entire thing. I'm hammering, medium pressure. And the way that I can tell if I've hammered everything is that I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to look for my line. And it looks like I've hammered everything. So now I can pull off this tape, which is sometimes tricky because it gets stuck to the metal. You want to use masking tape because it's way easier to pull off than any sort of packing tape or anything like that. And when you look at this, you get an exact replica. Can you see it? Of what line you've created. And when you dip this in black, well, it really starts to stand out. Okay? The only other hammer I haven't really showed you was a rawhide mallet. And anything that's not a steel head hammer is really great for kind of bending metal, and it doesn't damage your texture because a rawhide or a wooden mallet or plastic mallet is softer, okay? So I could go right on top of this and bend this metal and hammer right on it, and it's not gonna damage my textures that I put in here, okay? Another good thing is if my metal starts to curve and it's not totally flat, if I hammer it from the back side using a mallet, it flattens it out without damaging. And that is Textures 101. Thank you.